Inside of the Third Reich, there were huge networks of concentration camps established by Nazi Germany. Inside of the barbed wire fences, thousands of evil SS guards and members of staff committed crimes against humanity at sites such as Bergen-Belsen, Auschwitz and Ravensbruck. After the Second World War came to an end, the focus switched on punishing those who were responsible for the crimes of the concentration camps and the mass killings, and despite a number of guards such as Irma Grese or Rudolf Hoess being sentenced to death and executed, there were many more who committed crimes who never faced justice. The Nuremberg Trials took place, which tried the remaining members of Hitler's inner circle and his Nazi government, but there was one man who could have been brought in front of the judges at Nuremberg, but he was tried separately later. Oswald Pohl was the head of the SS main economic and administrative office, and with this he became the head administrator of the concentration camps, meaning he was responsible for millions of deaths. Join us today as we look at the justified execution of Oswald Pohl, the head administrator of the concentration camps. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Oswald Pohl was born on the 30th of June 1892. His father was a blacksmith and he was one of 8 children. His family were well off, and at school he studied classics such as Greek and Latin, and he admitted he always wished to study science, but he did not go to university for this. Instead he went into the Navy and became a sailor, and he served during the First World War in the Baltic Sea and along the coast of Flanders. He got married in 1918, but following the war, like so many soldiers, he felt at a loose end, and he attended a trade school and began to study law. But he dropped out of university and then started to work as a paymaster for the Freikorps in Berlin, Upper Silesia and the Ruhr Basin. In this role, Pohl, like many, were unhappy with the Weimar government, and as a member of the Freikorps, he was a militant part of the resistance to the German post-World War I government. But like many other Freikorps members, Oswald Pohl would hear about the Nazis and the Nazi Party, and he was attracted to their right-wing politics. He joined the SA in 1925, and then joined the Nazi Party in February 1926, but then 3 years later joined the SS. He would state that, "I was a National Socialist before National Socialism became a thing." In 1933 he met with Heinrich Himmler. Himmler was impressed with Pohl, and he described him as an energetic and dedicated Nazi, and Pohl continued to impress Himmler following more meetings. He had experience in leadership and had already overseen 500 soldiers in the Navy during wartime, but he became desperate to become an officer with the SS and to begin climbing the ranks. Inside of the SS, Pohl worked quickly, and he gained plaudits for changing the SS accounting systems, and he gained lots of respect for this, and further promotions came. He was seen as a skilled administrator, and was then appointed the chief of the administration department in the staff of Himmler himself. Pohl wrote, "Himmler became very insistent, and wrote me one letter after another, urging that I take over the administrative organisation of the SS. In December 1933 and January 1934, he invited me to Berlin and Munich, and showed me the whole SS administrative setup, and the many complex problems that were involved. It was only in February 1934, after I saw what a big job was in store for me, that I finally accepted." He also founded the Society for the Preservation and Fostering of German Cultural Monuments, which was based at Wewelsburg Castle, and was supposed to be a centre of SS worship. But over time, Oswald Pohl's role in the administrative proceedings will lead to him working in the concentration camp system and overseeing it. Pohl said when he joined Himmler's personal staff that, "When I took over my office, the SS was a comparatively small organisation, like a union with a group here and there in various towns and cities. I started by installing administrative commands in various key cities, and I selected personnel who would be fit for their jobs. I inaugurated schools that taught these administrative officials for a few weeks, before they were then dispatched to take over my branch offices all over Germany. I achieved a sound administration in the SS, with orderly bookkeeping and financial sections." Pohl, inside of the concentration camp system, realised that slave labour was needed for economic purposes, and following the Austrian Anschluss, Pohl accompanied Himmler to Mauthausen, where it was decided that concentration camp prisoners and slave labourers would be forced to work inside the quarries there, with a camp being created. The finances of the SS were controlled by Pohl, and he worked on budgeting building projects of many concentration camps. He became the chief for the budget and construction of these camps, and Himmler later brought all of the SS admin into one office, called the SS Main Economic and Administration Office, with Pohl being the head of this. He was the third most powerful figure in the SS behind Himmler and Heydrich, and it was said that he controlled the 20 concentration camps and 165 labour camps. He directed all the SS and police building projects and was in charge of all the SS economic enterprises. He would take the profits of the slave labour and then reinvest it building larger and bigger camps, which eventually became death camps, fitted with gas chambers and execution sites. Pohl even complained that the death rate of prisoners inside the camps was leading to a dent in the economic output of them. He became incredibly powerful and was a chairman of the board of directors for the Eastern Territories Industries Limited. He expanded the SS economics industries and created even more camps and sub-camps, and many of his policies were driven by money, but they caused such death and devastation. For example, Pohl refused to allow any increase in rations for starving prisoners who were working themselves to death in the granite works at the Gross Rosen camp, and with this he was also having a role in the racial extermination of the camps, working people to their deaths. He oversaw the organisation of the concentration camps until 1944, and his ideas were based on extermination through labour, and to exploit prisoners as much as they could to maximise financial profit from the work. Pohl was obsessive in this profit, and even tried to predict the average life expectancy of prisoners and the value of them, which he equated for being 9 months and a value of 1,630 marks. He also oversaw the task of collecting gold fillings from Jewish people who had died, along with their hair, clothing, jewellery and possessions, which was stolen from the prisoners and then sold on. It was under his plan that Auschwitz grew into a huge killing complex, and that Majdanek and Stutthof became huge killing sites. His organisation funded the creation of these death camps, and the expansion of the killing of the Holocaust was funded by Pohl's office. He would butt heads with Albert Speer, the Minister of Armaments, about production, saying, "Right Minister Speer appears not to know that we have 160,000 inmates at present and are fighting continually against epidemics and a high death rate because of the billeting of the prisoners, and the sanitary arrangements are totally inadequate." It was all about production, and as the war was turning against the Germans, there was a distinct need to increase armaments production. New facilities were made by the SS for arms production, and further camps created wonder weapons such as the V2 rocket. All of these areas were funded by Pohl's work and office. But by summer 1944, Pohl's control of the concentration camps was given to local offices, and at the end of the war, Pohl went on the run. He hid in Upper Bavaria, and then tried to pass himself off as a farm worker, before he was arrested by the British in May 1946. He was placed on trial in the Pohl Trial, and was the main defendant, along with 17 other SS officers, employed by the SS Main Economic and Administrative Office that he oversaw. He was accused of 4 crimes: participating in a common plan to commit war crimes and crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes against humanity and membership of a criminal organisation, the SS. He did not deny the mass killings of Jews and other prisoners, and witnesses told of the horrors inside of the camps, but Pohl said he was just an executive or an office worker, with people above him calling the shots. He accused the prosecution of being guided by their own personal hatred and by revenge, but was sentenced to death, being found guilty of all 4 charges. Despite appealing his death sentence, Oswald Pohl would go to the gallows shortly after midnight on the 7th of June 1951. He would have been led out of his cell under the cover of darkness and taken into a courtyard where the gallows stood. The gallows at Landsberg Prison was where hundreds of Nazi war criminals were executed. Accompanied to his execution by scores of military police and guards, Pohl was also joined by a Catholic priest, who stayed with him until he was handed over to the executioner. He was taken up to the gallows and his identity was confirmed, before he was then led up to the stairs and handed over to the executioner. His arms and legs had been secured, before the executioner placed a black hood over his head, and then the noose. As he was placed over the trapdoor, the lever was quickly pushed, and Oswald Pohl plunged to his death. Oswald Pohl was one of the main administrators of the concentration camps, and he had accompanied Himmler on many visits to build new camps and sites where horrific crimes and murder took place. He was linked to the slave labour element inside the camps that killed thousands, and his office would be the ones funding expansion inside of camps such as Auschwitz, where their killing capabilities were increased heavily. He was a despicable man whose work led to millions being killed. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.